Hello everyone. Let's dive into the top 10 games, part 2, you absolutely must play that came out in 2024. If you missed part 1, be sure to check out the link in the description. Dragon's Dogma 2 doesn't have a traditional fast travel system. For most open-world games, this would be a death sentence, an affront to the player's valuable time. Yet somehow, Capcom has turned the absence of this quality-of-life feature into a resounding strength. It's the game's tremendous sense of adventure and discovery that accomplishes this. Every time you leave the relative safety of a village or city, there's no telling what will happen. You just know it has the potential to be spellbinding and will be well worth your time. Dragon's Dogma 2 is an extension of everything the first game achieved 12 years ago. It's an enchanting open-world RPG with varied, exciting combat and a player-created companion system that's still unlike anything else. It doesn't do much beyond what the original did, but advancements in technology have enhanced its anomalous strengths, breathing new life into its massive open world and the ways in which you and everything around you can interact with it. Elden Ring is, without a doubt, the best game I've ever played. It masterfully combines countless elements into a magical, breathtaking open world. You lose yourself in its vastness, navigating through tough enemies, cryptic dialogue, and unforgettable boss fights, all accompanied by stunningly beautiful music. This game has it all, and everything it does perfectly. It's a truly magical and haunting journey, one that's hard to fully put into words. The open world of Elden Ring is immense, but unlike many modern games, its size feels purposeful. Every inch of the map is dense and intricately handcrafted. The world is stunning, from lush forests and volcanic mountains to blood-soaked swamps, intricate dungeons, and ancient catacombs. It remains consistently breathtaking. The designers excelled at creating moments of awe, whether it's stumbling upon a windswept forest after cresting a hill or rounding a narrow mountain path to find a dazzling city perched on a slope. The rise of the Golden Idol. My first inclination is to figure out who everyone is, from the inmates lined up outside to the prison guards inspecting the now empty cells. Some first names are uttered in dialogue or scribbled on the side of the cell block in graffiti. Surnames can be found in formal letters and employee logs. Now, it's a matter of putting names to faces, repeating conversations I've already had, or looking through my notes to see who's talking to or about who, perusing an obscured note in the boss's office, and rummaging through all of the inmates' belongings. Once I know who everyone is and in which cell each prisoner resides, I just have to figure out how one of them masterminded a daring escape. Much like its predecessor, The Rise of the Golden Idol presents you with what is essentially a diorama of a moment in time, typically taken at the precise second or in the immediate aftermath of a crime. Infinity Nikky. I had no idea, really, what Infinity Nikky was about before I dove in. I knew from some trailers that it was a free-to-play game about collecting pretty dresses and exploring a relentlessly positive open world. In those respects, I was correct. I just missed the really big part, the fact it's a pacifistic Genshin Impact wearing a pretty dress. And as that realization sunk in for the first time, my heart also sank with it. I really tried to get into Nikky's gacha offerings, to delight in its menagerie of menus and cash in countless currencies for fun socks or glitzy tiaras. Sadly, I won't be logging back in ever again. Infinity Nikky has you play as a pink-haired girl called Nikky, accompanied by a small cat creature called Momo. They get embroiled in this cosmic mystery that doesn't make a great deal of sense. 1, they get sucked into a portal. 2, they meet a goddess who's like, miracle dresses, very stylish, save the universe, get them in it. 3, you accept, knowing full well the experience will cost you 27,000 megacrystals down the line or whatever. Silent Hill 2 Remake. Despite several recent successes in remaking classic horror games, there's been one project that seemed to be an enormously daunting, if not impossible task. Silent Hill 2. For some, the game represents the holy grail of the survival horror genre, with its uniquely dreamlike mood, haunting monsters draped in metaphor, and an oppressive atmosphere as thick as the titular town's signature fog. Depending on who you ask, Bloober Team has either been auditioning for the reins to this series or liberally cribbing from it for years with games like Layers of Fear and The Medium. Now, in cooperation with Konami, All that groundwork has led to the team's remake of Silent Hill 2, and the end result is a meticulous, loving, and stunning recreation of one of horror's most significant efforts. Silent Hill 2 stars James Sunderland, a man who arrives in the dreary town of Silent Hill in search of his wife, Mary, who has written him a letter begging to see him again, despite allegedly dying 3 years ago. It's usually pretty easy to predict how a 2D Metroidvania is going to play out. At some point, you'll probably unlock a double or even triple jump to reach previously inaccessible areas, obtain an air dash that helps you traverse large gaps and pass through specific blockades, and acquire a weapon upgrade that functions as both a killing tool and a way to progress past certain obstacles. Animal Well contains most of these things, but never in ways that are expected. Created by solo developer Billy Basso and published by Big Mode, Animal Well is a surrealist puzzle platformer that's delightfully surprising. Even if its pixelated art style and genre trappings make it seem familiar on the surface, it is a game that often eschews conventional wisdom and stands out because of it. You play as a nondescript blob who emerges from a blossoming flower into a strange, vibrant world filled with creatures big and small. You can move and jump, but that's about the extent of your physical prowess. Upon awakening, you're free to explore in any direction you choose. Helldivers 2, it's a bold swing to dramatically change a formula that you know is working, but the gamble has paid off for Arrowhead Game Studios. Helldivers 2 opts for an over-the-shoulder third-person perspective as opposed to the original game's top-down view, making for a shooter that pulls you closer into the thick of its frenetic combat. This shift brings Helldivers 2's gameplay better in line with its ludicrous narrative tone, managing to create memorably explosive firefights despite the repetitive enemy types and map designs. Helldivers 2 is an incredible game. It sets out to be a rambunctious and entertaining shooter, and hits that target with military precision. Helldivers 2 sees you step into the patriotic boots of the titular fighting force, lowly grunts on the front lines of an intergalactic war. Each new entry in the Dragon Age series is always transformative, so it's not uncommon for a fan to really love one of the entries, but feel lukewarm about another. 2009's Origins played like a spiritual successor to 1998's Baldur's Gate, while its 2011 sequel took the series in a more third-person action game direction. And then 2014's Inquisition opted for gameplay that felt like a single-player MMO. If anything, the one constant to a Dragon Age game is that you can expect that each new game will be different from the last. At first, it looked like Dragon Age: The Veilguard was not going to surpass my enjoyment of past games, existing as no more than a safe return to form for developer BioWare instead of a bold step forward for the franchise. But inch by inch, The Veilguard has wormed its way into my Inquisition-loving heart. Is The Veilguard as complex and nuanced as past Dragon Age games? No, not at all. Instead, it delivers an action-packed romp through a fantastical setting with good friends. Metaphor is acutely aware of the role religion and politics play in society, and is more than willing to have conversations some would rather avoid. Furthermore, it is a game that understands the important role fiction plays in helping to establish our most fundamental beliefs, and it does not take that power lightly. Thus, the game begins with its narrator asking the player an important question. Do you believe that fantasy has the power to drive real change? Yes, my heart sang. Yet there was a part of me, cloaked in that aforementioned anxiety, that hesitated. Do art, fiction, and fantasy mean much in a world ravaged by bombs, inequality, injustice, and starvation? I wasn't so sure. By the game's end, however, I felt certain of my answer. Metaphor, Refantazio, is a brilliant game packed with adventure, charming characters, heartfelt stories, and elevated versions of Atlas's signature gameplay, art, turn-based combat, and sprawling dungeons. It's also an extraordinarily earnest title that offers comfort to those who need it, and asks players to have hope for tomorrow, the people around them, and themselves. At the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2, you get a glimpse of Ellie's life in idyllic Jackson, Wyoming. If it weren't for the walls surrounding the town, you could almost forget that the world is crawling with infectious monsters that would kill everyone in sight. Its main road, blanketed in snow, is a charming row of old buildings with decks for sidewalks, more Old West town than post-apocalypse settlement. The Last of Us Part 2 grapples with Joel's decision not through Joel, but through Ellie. This life is clearly not enough for her. She's distant and brooding, obviously conflicted about something. She's changed a lot. And when everything falls apart and she sets out in search of vengeance, you see her pain in its rawest, most brutal form. It's a devastating, gruesome story of revenge in which the purpose of violence gets muddied by its intensity. But as a character study, The Last of Us Part 2 is beautiful and haunting, and I found myself completely overwhelmed by the emotional weight of it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, give us a like, tell us your favorite game in the comments, and check the description below for great offer links.